Good morning and welcome to the May 24th Kildare Hills Board of Commissioners meeting. I call the meeting to order and ask if we would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we enter our moment of silence this morning, just a few things that I ask you all just to keep in your minds. First, just continue to pray for those in Oklahoma and the devastation and the recovery that's going on there. And also, some special thoughts and prayers go out to Fire Marshal Rosati. His wife passed away just a couple of days ago after a long battle with cancer. So please keep him and his family in your thoughts and prayers. And then also, we're on the Friday just before Memorial Day. And while certainly a lot of people enjoy picnics and celebrations over the holiday weekend, I think it's worth just pausing to really think about the true message of Memorial Day and what that holiday is declared to do, which is really honor those who have lost their lives serving our country. And with that, I'd ask if you would join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next on the agenda this morning is the approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I think that we need to add one agenda item to the agenda as presented, a nomination for appointment to the Dare County Land Transfer Tax Appeals Board. So I'd like to move that we add that item to the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to add the nomination for appointment to this morning's agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, I move that the agenda as amended be approved.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So the first item on the agenda this morning, because we'll put this item, it didn't state the order. We go ahead and we can do the general work session first, and then we'll just pick up this under new business.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Did you do public comment before the workshop or not?
Um,
I don't know
we
if
can. It's not in
I don't
that
know.
order.
I don't know if we,
Okay.
it's usually the other way around,
See any
isn't it?
public? We have the general work session scheduled before the public comment this morning on the agenda. So I'll probably just take it in order, and then, since we're not approving anything related to the budget, so if anyone has any comments to add related to the budget, they could do that during that public
Let's
comment.
keep it in the same order then,
Okay.
okay?
All right, so we will move on to the general budget work session. Debbie, would you like to?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Get
This is the recommended budget from the manager for 2013-14, and I'm sure you've all had a chance to read the budget message, but as stated in the budget message, the recommended rate is the revenue neutral rate, which is 3209. It's highlighted certain aspects of the budget and so forth with pretty much all of the current fees recommended to remain the same with the exception of the animal control boarding fee. We are recommending an increase in that to $50 per day. Also just some highlights. The budget does recommend and request a cost of living for all employees for 2%. Continues to fund the 401k. The health insurance, we did have quite a substantial increase. However, in working with our plan provider, we've made adjustments to that. It does include a higher deductible an out-of-pocket limit for the employees, but it does continue to maintain a very good health policy. We're not requesting any new positions. It does fully fund the grants that we had received in our police department for 4 positions. And we will continue to examine vacant positions as they occur and assign duties and responsibilities elsewhere as we can. The water department, the rates for that are recommending an increase in line with the water system master plan, and we can speak to that specifically when we do get into that department. Also with the wastewater, I'm happy to report that the wastewater fund is continuing to repay their debt to the water fund, and this year there would be a repayment of $18,750. And Mayor, I'll defer to you as to how you would like for Beverly and I to go over this with the board. We can go straight into the revenues and then go by each department and address any questions the board may have.
Sure. Let me just ask for kind of consensus here from the commissioners. I know last year we kind of went section by section, and if there were any questions, we just asked it during that time. Is that how you would like to proceed this time?
That's right.
That works.
Okay, we can do that. Same
Okay,
thing.
then I would suggest perhaps we start with page 2. And I'm not going to read each of these highlights, but I just would like to stress again, because I think there has been some confusion, perhaps maybe with some of the media coverage, that we've requested a tax increase, and that is not the case. I know it's difficult. It was actually easier last time when the number went down versus it going up, even though some people did see an increase in their tax bill then. But because we did lose value, the actual number that it takes to achieve the same amount of revenue, that number did go up, but the 3209 is what would currently take to acquire the same amount of revenue that the 23.5 cent from the old value. And so just think that's very important for our citizens to understand. So with that, we can go to page 4, which begins the line item revenues. And as you know from previous years, we're very conservative with our revenues, but with that being said, they're pretty tight. We don't quite have the what was the term the Commissioner Pitt used to accuse us of in our slush fund.
All good managers have slush. Hidden, of course.
Does anyone have any questions for the revenues? No. Okay.
Well, I do have one thing that's for information only, but overall, on our shared revenues, what's your projection on that? Is it year to year, shared revenues?
Our shared revenues, well, in the fiscal year coming up, our shared revenue, let me look at the levy percentage right quickly, and I'll tell you how that.
Well, maybe I see it here.
Well, we're projecting an increase, but our
Yeah.
levy share also will increase for the budget year as well.
Okay.
Because of because of our levy in the budget, in the fiscal year we're in now,
Mm-hmm.
that grew our municipal share for the budget year.
Yep, all right, got it. Okay, I see it now. Now I understand it, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
And obviously, as we've discussed in previous years, the other towns and the county's tax rate and their levy
Right, right.
does affect what's gonna happen
In the
to us.
following year.
Right, in the following year.
What do we know about what's happening with that this year? Besides, I know what the county is, I'm not sure of the others.
Well, we know what's been proposed. I mean, Duck has proposed a
Duck was, I believe, 3 cents.
Yes,
Dare County is 3.25.
yep.
And Nags Head was 1 cent townwide, municipal service district stayed the same. And if that scenario, if that is the way it all plays out, and we still stay at revenue neutral, our, and that's not how the plan year, that's not how I budgeted the plan year, because we didn't know all this at that time. And things can change in a couple of weeks.
Right.
But with that scenario, and the projections on revenue, Kill Devil Hills will lose about $62,000 of sales tax and occupancy tax and land transfer tax.
Right.
That's the amount that we would lose
Relative to this year.
with the projections of revenue, yeah.
Relative to what we
Relative.
otherwise. would have.
Relative to our levy share percentage
Right.
this year.
right.
Not that.
Right, but we wouldn't actualize or feel that loss until the 14-15 year,
That's
correct?
right.
correct.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
And it's not an actual loss, it's a reduction of the increase.
that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
Assuming the economy,
everything else?
yeah.
Yeah,
moving. Yes.
Assuming we grow at the same pace we've been growing.
Okay. Well, if there are no additional questions for that, then I would like to suggest we go straight to page 15.
I have one other question.
Okay, sorry.
As far, and this is not just related to revenue, but in general, since we are now, obviously, we're looking at the 13-14 budget to adopt, but this is the 2-year plan, so we're also looking at the financial plan for 14-15. There's several things in that plan that potentially could be altered. What is the appropriate time to, when you make those adjustments? I mean, are we looking at just kind of overall picture, or, so if these other entities, whether that's the county or the municipalities, do increases that are going to affect our revenue sharing for the 14-15 plan, do we not really address that until the budget comes before us for that year? We
Yes,
don't go
ma'am.
back and adjust it in the plan?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Just next year, you would be presented a budget for that year, which, you know, we certainly hope to be able to follow as much as possible what is in the plan year, but knowing that there's going to be adjustments. And certainly one of the adjustments that very likely will be on the table is the beach nourishment and how that's going to be funded.
Okay.
You could also, very early in the next term, if you desired, hold a budget guidance session and discuss any changes that you'd like to see before the budget begins preparation. If you, that would be
Okay.
your choice, of course.
Okay. Yes, this is, for those of us that were seated just a couple of years ago, this is the first time that we're actually looking at in detail the plan
Right.
here, because we came in right after the plan was adopted, and just
And-
last year focused on the single fiscal.
And for those shared revenues that will likely shift downwards if the scenario, like we just said, the 3 cents and the 3.25, the 62,000 is not significant enough, I think, to realign our budget.
Right.
But if it were a major a much larger number, I probably would
No.
revise the plan year somewhat before it gets adopted, just so you'll know how we will look for that.
Okay.
You said it would go down, how did you say that again?
Well, I would adjust those numbers down about $62,000 for the plan year.
Proportionate.
I'm not sure I understand that.
In the sales tax, in your.
You're saying it's not significant, is that what you
Well,
said?
when I say it's not significant, I'm saying that it's 62,000, and that is a significant number, but, and it will be adjusted, because things probably might more likely change. Our, levy numbers might not be exactly like we have projected them here, finally. But, for example, the Article 39 would be a $29,000 less in your plan year. The Article 40 would be 47, Article 42 would be 12,000 less, and et cetera, up to a grand total of 62.
In layman's terms, would we end up being better off or worse off?
Worse.
A little worse,
Okay.
a little worse.
By 1.5%.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's something that we could manage in other areas as well, make up for in
The-
other areas.
The reason I ask is because one of the things that's concerned me, this revenue sharing thing it really shouldn't be set up that way. We all know, we've spoken about that in the past, but and during the years when our budgets were very tight and deservedly so, I think, to a certain degree, maybe not quite as tight as I would have liked it, but they're, in layman's terms again, and this is the easiest for me to understand, I know it isn't strictly we lost money. I don't mean it that way, but there was a couple of years, say within the last, 5 or 6 years, where the other municipalities raised the taxes and we lost, for how I see it in my mind. We didn't receive, I should say. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, one year it was like up to $280,000, $288 or
With
something.
Nags
Yeah.
Head's beach
Year-
nourishment.
year
when
that Nags
kicked in.
Head
Right.
did their,
In other years, it was significant. In my mind, it was significant. So I don't know what the figure would be if you added up the past 5 years of what we may have gotten had we had a modest increase. But we're not going to have an increase again at the way it's presented now. And we're going to drop back again. And I'm not saying just to increase the revenue, our revenue, willy-nilly, for whatever you want, just because. Number one, we can always use the money, because we've been pretty austere these last few years. And in addition to the money that we didn't get, revenue sharing, we didn't get the taxes that we would have gained by imposing a tax. So it's really kind of more than that. My point is that we're falling behind, and we're still making cuts, and it's just something I think we need to think about. I'm not so sure that a very modest increase at this time wouldn't be prudent, but that we can talk about that as we go on. I would just hate to see the other municipalities getting more and more of that revenue year after year after year, and we're doing what a lot of people think we should be doing, and I think we should be doing to a certain extent, which is trying to be conservative and be as least burdensome on the citizens as we can, and at the same time try to maintain services and treat our employees properly. And I think we're at a balance here right at this point that, I just think we should look at the revenue side before we end up approving it. For those reasons. But anyway, we can go on. I just wanted to address the revenue sharing thing while it was on the table.
Well, actually, if we were going to continue on with revenue, or had we completed that, were you recommending that we move on to, because this would be the time to discuss that, before we move on to expenses, if anyone has
Well, I was
comments.
just thinking if anybody wanted more time to think about it, we're gonna have another meeting or two on this before we approve it. So, I mean, if you just wanna move on and just mull that around, that's fine, I don't care, but I just wanted to get it out there early. However you wanna do it, so it doesn't matter to me.
Does anyone have any comments they wish to share now?
What about you?
well, I can. I always love to hold forth on revenue sharing because it's a terrible system. It just happens to be the best that's available. You can imagine, of course, if you were sitting on the duck board and we proposed that we divide it by the other thing allowed in statute, which is we'll divide it by per capita. Of course, Kill Devil Hills wouldn't care, we'd get the same because it so happens that our levy share and our per capita share are roughly the same. But Duck, of course, has only 700 residents.
They wouldn't get much.
They contribute most, much more than we do, actually, and they would get nothing. So they would be delighted. Perhaps go to the legislature and suggest that we all impose our own taxes. I don't know. That's what I would do. But there is, it is a difficult system to understand, and it's complex. And people have railed for years that because of the way it works, it doesn't pay to be conservative and cut your taxes and so forth and so on, because it penalizes you. If you reduce your taxes 10%, you also reduce your shared revenue by 10%. You know, affect reduce total revenue, and so you have to be very careful how you maneuver. But over the years, it has. I mean, our taxes are on a per householder basis very, very low, and anybody who's lived anywhere else or owns a home right now anywhere else knows that. Right? My taxes here on a house that's twice as large as my little winter house in Florida, I pay half the taxes on it that I pay on my little concrete box in Florida, and that's because of the way we are able to manage our revenue stream here. And so while it's complex, I think it's fair when you look across the cross-section of municipalities and unincorporated areas. It really does distribute the revenue in terms of the way it's utilized and used. And
I agree with you. I think when everything's considered, it's
Yeah,
fair,
yeah.
because it wouldn't be right for Duck to get nothing.
that's
Nuts to
right,
get
that's right,
everything.
that's right.
I agree, which, to me, even makes it more important, because, you know, it's,
But the problem is how else do you do it? You know, what are the other ways of doing it besides per capita and ratio of the levies? And nobody's ever come up with a good one. And
well, if you look around, what's going on in other municipalities, just
Mhm.
in general, you can see you can see with your eyes what's
right,
going on.
that's right.
Then you realize and look back over the years, the last, 5 or 6 years or whatever, and we didn't raise taxes 2 or 3 years in a row, and then we, did a penny, and it was designated for streets, as I recall, and there's things happen in other places, and they're not happening here, and we're doing what a lot of people would say you should be doing in a time like this, and have been doing. And some of the others haven't been doing that, and they're reaping the rewards for that. I just think it's something we really should look at closely, because if we're saying we're gonna lose this amount of money, do we want to just go ahead and say, okay, we're just gonna go ahead and lose it?
Well, on the other hand, you have to look at the situation. For example, we voted in our last meeting to pursue beach nourishment. And if we actually do that, and we establish the special service district and increase the taxes as we suggested that we might under those, that's, for example, roughly a 5% increase in the levy, 5 to 10, and a doubling in the service district, all of that counts as part of our levy. And for every dollar you bring in on that, we will bring in $1 of shared revenue. And so you will have tons of revenue coming in because of that, just as Nags Head does now. And Southern Shores and Kitty Hawk and Duck and Nags Head will all be, their commissioners will all be sitting around and say, those SOBs in Hill Devil Hills.
We're gonna be in the reverse situation
We're gonna
than
be
we
in the
were
reverse
2 years
situation.
ago when Nags Head did what they did. And that's the
And
cyclical effect
that's
of
right.
this impact of the shared revenue. Because this year we're gaining. I don't know what the dollar amount was. I mean, this year because we had a tax increase last year, we actually received a little bit higher proportion of the
Just a
shared
little higher.
revenue this year. Now, next year, we're gonna go down again if these other entities raise their taxes, but then the year following, we're gonna likely could go up significantly
That's right.
because of the implementation of, with the beach nourishment and the special tax district. So it's just kind
It
of,
will be,
It's, we catch up, we
Mhm,
fall behind,
mhm,
we catch
mhm.
up, we fall behind.
and then we will have 5 years of relatively higher revenue, or 4 years. And then suddenly, the project is done, the taxes reduce, and the following year, we will have a significant shared revenue reduction. But,
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
But we are assuming that when we get to that point where we are reaping a few rewards, the others may be raising theirs too, and then our rewards wouldn't be as
Some
great as we think.
some of them
they're gonna
will,
be.
just as we did when we
Right.
were
They're
facing
gonna
that.
protect themselves.
That-
Of
that
course,
could happen
of course,
too.
and as we did. And, you know, we had 2 one-penny raises that really were done for that reason.
I mean, I don't know, you off the top of your head, how much has our taxes increased in, say, the past 6 years?
Oh, that's not a good top of my head thing.
No, I mean, I don't- what we
They
raised it
increased,
one-
I believe,
I
from
don't think we've raised,
It's 2
from
cents.
20 cents,
Yeah.
Couple of cents.
from
Couple
20 cents to
cents.
23, wasn't it?
20 to 20,
It was 21 to 23 and a half.
21 to 23.
21 to
Right.
23, or 10%.
There was actually a reduction in there somewhere.
Yes, there was.
So anyway, I feel like we're marking time and we're getting behind, and I know what you're saying is gonna happen when we do the beach nourishment. But a lot of that money's gonna go to the beach nourishment, that's what it's for. It's
Yes,
not like-
yes, it will. And we will also have to husband and marshal our resources. The temptation, of course, is because there is so much revenue, oh, let's do something with it. But that is the time when you really have to get conservative and figure out how you're gonna build your reserves for the lean times that are coming.
Well, I'll just let you know that basically at this point in time, a 1 cent of our levy generates approximately $196,000. And if we were to take I didn't recalculate what the total impact of the budget would be, but I did for the shared revenue portion. If we were to say, take our tax rate from revenue neutral, which is the 32.09, to 33, up to even it off at 33, it would generate approximately $104,000 in additional shared revenue. So that would take
The
us from
following year.
62,000, that's right, in the plan year. So that would take us from the, like you said, the perceived loss of
Right.
reduction in the revenue of 62,000 to approximately 42,000 in the green.
So in the planning year, the total revenue increase would be 200,000,
Well,
300,000.
it'd be, yeah, that's right.
300,000.
So it would be raised by 0.91 to get it up to 33, right? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Right,
Yeah.
that's right. And yeah, that's the only really
Okay.
scenario that I calculated outside of what we've already got here.
So with a 0.9% increase, we're gaining, the money we're getting from the tax, number one, plus the additional shared revenue, we gain a lot by making a very modest increase. We gain a lot of money. You're talking $300,000 or $250,
Well, like I said, the 1 cent generates 196,000.
190, 200 roughly.
And like I said, I just did to see what would happen in the bottom line on the shared revenues, and it looks like it takes us from minus 62,000
Plus 40.
to plus
That's
40.
another 100,000. So, okay. So if we raise the tax 0.91, we're gonna gain $300,000.
In the second year.
Right, okay. I'm done.
But actually, it's not really gaining 300,000 because some of that is just mitigating a loss.
I understand.
Okay,
but
so it's not cash that
that's
we're
how my
gaining.
mind works, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure it's not actual, wow, we have $300,000 to go spend or to go allocate to some, it's mitigating some of the loss.
But it's okay to say if we don't do it, we don't have $300,000.
That's true.
Well, and
That's
there-
fair, and the other's fair too, so.
Well, there is that additional revenue that you see in the actual year.
Yeah, we have a
From the.
research.
That's right,
Right.
that's correct. Yep, you will
Are
Anyway.
you serious?
I made my point.
Okay, all
Thank
right.
you.
Are we comfortable moving on to expenditures this, now, and we can process this and before it's approved, if anyone wants to make a recommendation. However, I do think before that we close this meeting, if anyone's inclining to make a recommendation, it would be nice to give staff the recommendation today so they can officially calculate things, so just put that in the back of your
Yeah,
mind.
the recommendation should be put on the table so that it can be addressed in the public hearing by the citizens.
Yes,
Right.
thank you.
That's great.
Okay, so we'll move
Okay.
on to expenditures?
Right, but just as a point of clarification, the budget that's recommended is the budget that goes to public hearing.
Correct.
Certainly, your citizens would,
They pay attention.
would comment on anything that you would recommend for what you were going to look at adopting, but what they'll actually,
Right.
what's actually going to public hearing doesn't include the increase.
That's correct.
Correct.
But of course, that information would relate to.
Yes, sir. That's what I meant. That would be
Right.
information
If
they
that's
would know.
something the board's proposing to do, they need to be able to comment on that.
Yes, ma'am. So with that, if you could turn to page 15. And again, we'll be happy to address any questions that you have, but I wasn't just gonna go line by line.
Page, where you at, 15?
I'm on page 15. It's the administration expenditures.
So if you go back to 14, that shows the highlights of the.
That does.
The 401, the COLA, and the merit or the bonus pay is still suspended.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Moving right through. I jumped to tab 14, I'm like, doesn't.
Yeah, I started doing it too. Page 14, tab.
Yeah, tab 6,
Six.
page 14. Sorry, I didn't tell you the tab.
No, you're good. Does anyone have any questions in this section?
You mean, like on page 15, do we have any questions?
Yeah, no, I've already moved on.
Can the people out in the audience see the sheets that we're looking at? Or is there any way?
They cannot.
They cannot? Is there any way we can do that?
I
Put 'em-
don't have,
Can you put them on the thing there?
somebody help me, I don't have it.
Actually, I think with the exception of Mr. Kimball, it's all staff that should have it, and we can get Mr. Kimball
It's okay.
a budget.
I went online and.
Thought it was online.
Is it posted
Okay, you're all
online?
right?
Looked at the budget.
Okay.
Okay, let me go try.
Okay, yeah, I
Sorry.
think we can do it online.
Yeah.
Might be turned.
Said it was online.
I think,
Meredith said, I have.
oh, go ahead.
Thank you for joining us, Howard.
Howard's always here.
He's been in a lot of them, I know that.
You know what the budget is?
It's what those old guys do.
While they're bringing that up, does anyone have any questions related to?
No, I don't.
Pages 15 or 16?
Page 15, I do.
Okay.
I think that videographer, they're paid way too much.
Come on.
I think we ought to look at that
Actually,
very closely. They look at us, let's look at them, right?
Actually, I think they're wanting to renegotiate their contract.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll go the opposite way. I don't think
I was
they're
gonna say,
paid enough.
comparatively speaking, if you wanna look at some of the other towns' budgets,
Yeah.
we have a bargain.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the opposite way. I think you're wrong.
And thank you for the wonderful job you
No
all do.
offense, no offense, Mike. I know you're joking, but
Okay,
Yes,
any
I am
other-
joking.
Any other questions?
We get a lot for our money. No, I don't have any more.
Okay.
I'm looking at this.
Is this where we start, what are we going to next, before we go on?
I'm looking for this.
Is this where we would address the stuff like the COLA and such? Is this the time to do that, or?
Sure. It's, obviously, it's in each department and
Right.
their salaries, but
Administration, that's what it is.
you know, that's one of those
overall thing.
overall things.
I guess overall,
The one with the arrows pointing out.
I'm not messing with that.
Sorry.
You like that?
Okay, we got our technology.
There you go. Or you can even do 100% if you want. The 100% might
Just
not
need to
be.
see if Howard can see it. That's the most important. I think everyone else has their copy. Howard, can you see that?
I can see that.
Okay.
That's good.
Well, if Howard can see it, we're good to go.
Yep.
Okay. Mike, you wanted to address COLA?
I think you might can type a number in there.
we talked about the adjustments in the health plan. And it's my understanding that the changes, Beverly, could you very, very briefly, like I talked to you yesterday, tell us what the major changes are, the deductible and the out-of-pocket?
Yeah, what we try to do is to focus on keeping the current benefit of the copay, the doctor's office. When you go into a doctor's office, the copays don't change. The prescription copay does not change. And that is it's a manageable number. You go to a general practitioner, it's a $20 copay. You go to a specialist, and it's a $30 copay. However, what we did have to look at is the deductible side. If you have a hospital stay, if it's something a little more serious in nature, a little more catastrophic. Our current deductible is $600 per person, $1,200 for a family. And we had to take that, regrettably, but we had to take it to $2,000 per person, $4,000 per family. And what was the out-of-pocket, Amy? Do you remember? Do you have that?
For the new,
Mm-hmm.
It's 10,000.
3,500 for a single and 7,000 for family
Mhm.
versus 2,000. What we have now is 2,000 for a single person or 4,000 for
And that's the
family.
maximum out-of-pocket.
If you're in network, yes.
So we did have to increase that quite a bit. And the, I guess the strategy was our premiums, there were costs that are driving our premiums up. And that's predominantly the costs that were doing that. So we placed that burden on those are the users of the insurance. But for a, if you're sick and you need a doctor, the best thing to do is go on and get in and do your $20 copay.
Why did we choose that route instead of increasing the copays? I know that most insurance plans are increasing
It was just
copays
a
and-
mixture of a bunch of different areas, and to get our premiums down to a manageable level, that's kind of the one that we selected.
was
But there
there an
are
option?
other options.
Were there options to consider higher copays?
Mm-hmm.
There
There
were.
are some options to consider
But-
higher copays.
And honestly, just speaking from, the county just looked at this too, and quite honestly, there are a lot of people that don't actually reach their deductibles.
Right, I
So
understand. Yeah.
that's probably part of it in trying to help
on
the
balance-
employees.
On balance, this is better for our employees? Is
Yeah.
that-
Well, I hope
Depends.
so,
Yeah,
but,
The only folks who are gonna be affected are those who have serious issues.
Yeah.
Big-
They would be
big
more
expensive.
affected, yes, sir.
Yeah,
more affected, that's
but in the long run, they're gonna be helped by those, if they visit their doctors frequently, they're gonna be helped a lot. I'll be honest with you, the county had to do the same thing. Their amounts went up significantly with their premiums, and we actually had our primary care physician co-pays went up from 25 to 35, and our specialist went from 50 to 70. And our deductibles went from 1,000 to 1,500 for a single person, and I can't remember what it was for a family, but I think it went from 1,500 to maybe 3,000. I can't remember what the family was. So it's still way lower than what the county was
Okay.
for that. So everything went up there, not just the pay for the co-pays, but that as well. And so I think you did a great job in order to be able to keep
Yeah.
the premiums down
I
on
think I
that.
understand.
yeah, we do have
Our,
it.
our median salary right now is what, around 45? So,
so, yeah.
so the maximum deductible is 10% of the median?
Okay.
Is that about right?
I guess that's
Okay.
about right. Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that.
We
Yeah,
also thought it was important to maintain the current copay for the medicines, for the prescriptions.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good.
Well, we're gonna
We
be
do-
one of the few that do, aren't we?
Mhm.
Well, we just thought it was important that our employees do get
Yeah,
in, see the
yeah.
doctor early, and if they do need to be on a
Yeah.
prescription,
No, yeah.
either for that one incident or if they're on
Yeah.
a maintenance, that it's something that they can afford and will stay on.
And our insurance company does manage that pharmacy benefit quite strictly, though. They do encourage generic
Yeah.
drug use.
Same here.
And there are some prescriptions that if the employee or the person needs something that they specifically want a branded drug for, then they can choose to pay
Yeah.
the
Pay the
per
difference.
pill price for
45
it.
bucks instead of that.
Or, yeah, they actually pay for it, I think, per pill.
Is that what it is
pill
now?
cost,
Wow.
mhm. But that's only if it's a branded.
You know, my
One of the-
plan just gives gigantic co-payments.
One of the new, the new market drugs,
Yeah.
so.
that
So-
was, congrats on that. That's great negotiating skills. I don't think people realize how hard that is to do, so thank you for that.
So that, by doing all that, we're saving, I think you told me, 127,000 on premiums, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and the COLA's 2%. Each percent is 63,000,
That's roughly 63 to 64,000.
so so as far as our budget goes, it's the same. Because we're saving 127 and then we're giving out 127 or 28.
That's right.
And for the employees that have anything beyond a normal doctor visit, they're gonna be, it's gonna hit them harder than obviously someone who's, you know,
Yeah.
who doesn't.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So it's kind of rolling the dice.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know, I'm sure it'd be different across the, you know, all the way through but if you had a choice of which you would want, I know we're not gonna do that, but it's just as a mental exercise for me, I think of it, and I know last year, my wife and I had very good insurance, very good, and I had 2 surgeries and ended up with $9,000 out of pocket, which, you know, I'd have loved to have had
Yeah.
the lower, because, of course, you know, the company my wife works for pays my insurance, their rates are going up, so they had to keep doing the same thing, and it's like, okay, well, they're saving money, and we appreciate them giving us the insurance, and then something happens, and then it's like, holy cow, you know? Anyway,
I have another question. Do you have a problem with employees going to the ER or the ED when they maybe possibly should be going to a primary care physician or the urgent care?
And I don't know that specific to Kildover Hills, but with the plan in general, yes, and there is a larger copay for an ER visit.
Yes.
And, yeah, they do try to discourage just random, just going to the ER for something that could have been addressed. And that is a problem generally with our pool.
I know we hear that every single month, and we're trying to figure out a way to discourage that. I don't know how that can be done when it's, again, trying to figure out a way to either incentivize people to go to urgent care, which, but 2 of the urgent cares down here, the one at Kitty Hawk and the one at Southern Shores, both charges primary care physicians. So, yeah, I mean, you're not even charged the $75 copay. So it just makes sense to me to do that versus paying the higher copay to go to the hospital.
Our hospital copay is $150 versus the
Maybe that will
$20.
deter.
Right.
And that's working in healthcare, that's a national issue.
Right.
People inappropriately using the emergency department, but hopefully through education and almost a penalty of going by having such a higher copay, that would help.
Some communities are establishing municipal dispensaries for public employees, municipal and county employees to use, similar to the way the military services have done it in the past for family practice care.
Yeah. It'd be nice to figure out a way to
I
stop
don't know of
that.
any in North Carolina that are doing that, but it is common in some other states, particularly in metropolitan areas.
The volume of people.
It'd be nice to figure that out, because that's one of the reasons it goes up so much.
Any other questions or comments?
no, I just wanted to make the point about the insurance and the COLA, because I know our staff has been very patient all these years in carrying a lot of the burden for the state of the economy, and the last time there's been any kind of a raise at all was in the 2008-9 budget, and I think you better start to keep that in mind. There's cost of living's gone up. If you add up every year together, it's gone up considerably, even with the economy the way it is since then. And they haven't, as I said, they've been very patient. And I think 2% might be a little modest considering the changes in the insurance, because for a lot of people, it's going to be better for everybody as long as they don't get sick. But if they do, and whatever percentage of them that happens to, it's going to be a lot worse. So,
As long as they don't get seriously
Well,
sick.
yes.
I mean, if they're just
Right.
sick, actually, this still helps them by keeping their copay low.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that the budget includes a COLA for the first time in a number of years.
Yeah, I wouldn't object to it being a little more, though, personally.
Any other comments? Okay.
Tab 7. This is Building and Grounds Division. Begins on page 18 with the highlights, and then 19 is the line by line.
I have a question related on page 18 to the 299 for the Meekins Field lighting.
Yes, ma'am.
Obviously, I know what that means. What's the, obviously, it's a priority because it's in the budget, I would think. Can someone explain why it's a priority?
The, and where you would find that in the actual line items on page 21, we're proposing that that would be financed with lease payments. I can't remember, and Sean, maybe you can, when those lights were originally put in.
Probably back in late 80s. Does that sound right?
I'd say late 80s, early 90s, probably 89 to 91 range. And they were volunteered. North Carolina Power put in the poles, and we bought the lights from Musco Lighting. And they're dated and quite expensive to maintain according to Ross. They definitely need to be replaced with some more up-to-date lights.
Judge, I think we're also hoping that possibly will save us a little on electricity with the more up-to-date and energy efficient. But they're just very old, and as Greg said, they're very high maintenance. This isn't the first time they've asked for them.
Right. And you know what, I'm not opposed at all. One of the things, and I made notes throughout this budget, anytime I saw, even though I know, the annual lease payment is just under $40,000.
Yes, ma'am.
But whenever I was seeing kind of big ticket items, what I kept thinking is we've had an official request from the planning board to start some type of sidewalk improvement fund. And unfortunately, I don't know what that would cost to start creating a plan to put sidewalks down the bypass, but it's come up in the Community Appearance Commission. It's come up, we've had citizens ask us to please do something. And this is not a tit for tat. I realize that you can't just say, okay, let's not replace the lights and then we have the money to do the sidewalks, because it's, a much larger expense. But at some point, I would like the board to consider putting together some type of plan, whether it's the addition of a new fund that we can start allocating monies to or whatnot to address the sidewalks along the bypass. And I don't know where to start with that, whether it's first getting an estimate of what that would cost, what the plan would look like. But I do think at some point in the near future, we need to address that so we can put a plan together, because it's going to take some time to get that done.
If I may address that, the staff has had considerable conversation on that, and what we would like to propose to the board is the staff come back with some questions to begin the dialogue on exactly what are we talking when we say, we can simply say sidewalks on the bypass, but there's a lot more to that, and I know Greg had pointed out to me some areas that I guess I just never really focused on. And I'll use, for example, up around Martin Street, if you're on the north side heading south, like where from the pit to Martin Street, there's an area there that's very deep, and just things like that I've never, I guess it's never really where I concentrated on, that to put a sidewalk there versus, up by the Lowe's in that area where it's level, you're talking a whole different situation. So I think there's some questions that we would like to come back to the board with. Are we talking both sides of the bypass? Are we just talking one side? Are we talking a sidewalk? Are we talking something larger like what Nags Head has? So I think those questions get answered, and then from there we actually look at having a plan, much like our street improvement master
yeah.
plan, our water system
Yeah.
master
Okay.
plan. You know, something that, you're able to know what your goal is, and you're able to see how you would, pay for it. And then, yes,
Right.
you'd set up a reserve fund
And do
to
so many
that.
feet a year.
Yes, sir.
Great.
And we would have to think about, well, what do we mean, 3 feet, 5 feet, 10 feet?
Exactly. Exactly. And you know,
Both
you've
both
got-
sides, one side, that sort of thing.
And you've got areas out there that have, the sidewalks would literally have to be removed and, new sidewalk put in.
Redone.
So there definitely is a need for a plan, and, we'll be bringing those questions back to the board in the very near future.
Great, okay.
I'm guessing you're talking about the west side of the bypass versus the east side of the bypass where there's the,
That was just something that, in my mind, I hadn't really paid that much attention to until Greg pointed out. You know, I'm thinking, well, all right, so go get prices.
Mhm.
You know, and it's a whole lot more than just going to
Yeah,
get
that's right.
prices.
I tell you, Sheila and I can talk firsthand on that because we just walked it. So
Yeah,
as we walked it, I'm thinking,
Yeah,
this is not going to be as easy as,
No, it isn't.
Exactly,
as you think
exactly.
when you're, I
and
mean,
you don't
because
really notice that just driving
there's
by
a
at 50
terrific
miles an
amount of
hour.
variation.
well, and you can see the footpath and the bike path that people
Mm-hmm.
have already ridden, but it's not as safe. And we had
I
some
was
older
concerned with
we
some
had
of
some
our
older
walkers.
people that were walking the walk of silence
Mm-hmm.
with us with that week we walked, and it was a little treacherous in places. So I
Definitely.
see what you're talking about.
Could we talk about what the increases in operations and capital outlays are this year in buildings and grounds? Are there any key items in the operations increase, for example? Or is that just a general? I didn't see any one item
I-
the particulars.
I think with the exception of the Meekensfield lights, it's pretty much in keeping with the previous years.
Well, it's an increase of 20%. But I couldn't see any particular item that seemed
So
to
what
be-
line item are you referencing?
I think he's referencing the totals.
Yeah, the totals,
On what page?
for example, operations is going to, from the planning year, or
Well,
is going from 230 to 280.
The lease payments.
Yeah, the lights.
The lease payments.
Is that the
are-
lease payment that's
are
doing
gonna-
it?
Yes,
Okay,
and lease
okay.
payments are considered an
Okay,
operations
and the
budget.
capital outlay is going from 25 to 44. What's that one?
Well, the main one on the capital outlay is,
It's beach access.
Is that the
beach
frog
access
pond
is
and then the
improvement.
beach
What is it?
access?
They're gonna do some a little more maintenance on, I would call it capital maintenance on the beach accesses.
Okay. And have we been deferring that? Does it need
That
more
level
work?
of maintenance, yes.
Okay. And
then
I
the
see
other
our debt
item-
service is declining, so that's good.
The other item is the electrical around the frog pond.
That's right.
Okay.
And some painting.
All right. Thank you.
That, when you, Mayor, you mentioned the sidewalks. I was making some deliveries down on Hatteras Island a couple weeks ago, and I noticed, and I wasn't aware that this was going to be happening, but I noticed there's sidewalks through Avon now. The project there is almost completed, and they're going to do the same thing at Rodanthe, and this is an issue that I've already said here tonight, or today, and I've talked about before. You look at what's going on around us, and I mean, we're right here in the middle of the Outer Banks as far as the population is concerned, as far as the activity, the commercialization and everything. And we look at some place that is kind of, it's not remote. I don't know what the word would be, but some place like Hatteras Island with Avon and Rodanthe and Waves and Salvo, and they're putting sidewalks in. They'll be done this year, and we don't even have a plan.
Right.
That was Mary Helen Goodlow Murphy. That was her group.
Scenic Byways Committee.
That-
And
well,
our plan started on Bay Drive, right? I mean, we
I
do have.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand we have, it isn't like we've done nothing, but as, it, if you just look at things on the surface, people going through Kill Devil Hills, they look
Yeah.
around and they see the ditches along the road, and then they go down and they say, well, these people have real nice sidewalks.
There, a little bit of the history, and there's been different philosophies from different boards. Originally, it was that the businesses would put them in as they developed,
Right.
but that was after quite a bit of development. A number of years ago, the board did get special legislation that would allow you to assess property owners for the sidewalks being put in. And that may be part of what you look at when the plan is developed, if you actually want to utilize that to some degree. Not saying that you would want the property owner to pay the 100%, but you might want to consider them paying a percentage.
Right.
Their benefit.
Or you could take the county approach, which is to add to the municipal services, the additional tax that they charge for municipal services. For example, Duck, their path that they have, their sidewalk, was done with a 1 cent addition to the municipal rate. You know, the county charges the county taxes to us here in the municipality, and Kill Devil Hills manages the municipal rates in Duck before they were incorporated. And any place that's unincorporated, the county levies an additional municipal tax for the services that ordinarily would be provided by a town. And
Right.
they, in that case, in theirs, they just added a penny to their tax. And, that's how they built that one.
Nags Head's got substantial grant funding
Yeah.
for theirs.
I don't know how they've done it down on Hatteras Island. Does anybody know if those were additional municipal rates or not?
I think there was some grant.
I
There's
think there was
significant
pretty
grant
good
funding. I know, and it.
Their grants?
Yeah.
But I don't know if that covered everything or not.
Yeah.
Byway money? Okay.
Scenic.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, and I do hope that, Debbie, as you indicated, that staff could come relatively soon
Yes, ma'am.
with those questions, because I would like that to
Yeah.
remain a priority.
Mhm.
Yes,
Great.
ma'am.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else before we move on? You guys ready to move on? Okay.
Okay, tab 8 will take us to the finance department. The highlights are on page 24. It does speak there again to the health insurance. The general insurance also increased. Actual expenditures line by line begin on page 25.
Any questions?
Is there a single item in operations there that has increased it by the 30,000 that it's gone up? Or is it just generally spread through the whole area?
Well, we budget for insurance,
Mhm.
in townwide insurance and finance. We
Is that the
also-
largest increase?
Well, and we also budget for retiree health insurance there as well.
Okay, got it.
So it's probably a combination of a couple of
Yeah,
those things.
okay, understood.
2%.
What is retiree health insurance going to do to us eventually, Beverly?
Well, we have it, you know, I don't know, because we only pay, we pay that benefit until they're Medicare eligible. So it hasn't been overwhelming for the town. So, you know, we add a few every year, then we drop a few every year too, so.
Okay, so it's been stable?
It's been fairly stable.
Okay.
Do we become a supplement for them after they come on Medicare, or do we just drop them?
We offer them a supplement.
Okay, that they have to pay for.
That they pay their supplement. And it's at a, you know, group type rate, but we do offer the supplement if they want it.
If there are no additional questions there, if you'll flip to page 31, that's the Fleet Maintenance Division, which is a part of our Finance Department. 31.
Did you wanna go through MIS?
Did I skip MIS?
You know, you skipped,
Sorry, Nora.
She's been here for an hour.
I guess the big operational increase there is related to the fiber optic
Okay, that's what I was
installation
wondering.
townwide. Is
Okay.
that,
okay.
That's it.
I don't have any further questions then. I just wanted-
okay?
You good with that?
Now we'll go to
Okay,
Fleet.
all right.
I thought she was here for the coffee cake.
She was here to answer any questions about that, going with the state
Fiber optic.
fiber optic. Yeah.
Makes
Page
sense.
32 is our fleet maintenance. Thank you, Nora.
Any questions? Okay, we're gonna keep
Looks
moving?
reasonable.
Okay,
Tab 11 will take you to the planning department. The highlights on page 35. And the line items begin on 36. I will just touch briefly on vehicles. We have not been following our vehicle maintenance schedule for a number of years now. The approach that we've been taking, and my hat goes off to our fleet maintenance folks. They've been instrumental in helping us with this. It's the question is it costing us more to keep it on the road?
Then it would be to buy a new
Than
one.
it would be to buy, and that's how it's been addressed. And so, in the situation here in planning, and you'll see it throughout the town, we didn't feel, based on the information that we have, which is our service records, our expertise, and with our mechanics, that some vehicles were costing us more to keep on the road. And we use in that factor not just service records as far as the cost, but the downtime and how that affects our level of service. We don't always get it right, but this is our best guess, and this is one of the vehicles that we feel we can defer.
Okay. And how do you assess the cost of downtime when you do that?
And how long it is down, how often, and how it might, in other words, the level that vehicle provides the service. In other words, is it something that if there's no other option?
But you don't assign a financial or a dollar number to
No,
to
sir.
okay.
No, sir. Obviously,
Service related.
the dollar is the service related, but,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I just wondered if you had a way of costing it. That was
We don't, but if
Yeah.
certainly welcome any
Oh, I've
suggestions.
seen methods of doing it, but I don't know if they're any good.
Okay. Not that some departments are more important
Right.
than others, but their equipment would be.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me,
again-
I have to stand up. I'll just stand
Sure.
for a moment. I'll be all right.
Okay. The line item is on page
What's,
36.
I'm sorry, before you move on, the requesting decrease in professional services. What's that mean exactly?
That, the,
me see
if
what
you
they-
can see what the estimated, actual for 2012-13 was 2,000.
Yeah, and they also put in here, let's see, what did they say? Decrease 1,000, land use plan update nearly completed, and plan to update the shoreline access plan and recreation facilities plan. So they actually requested for the decrease.
Wow.
Where's that shown on page 36?
line item.
It's on
Second.
five,
It's,
second one down.
Yeah, it's
See where it's,
Under operations.
second line
Right,
item in
right, okay.
operations.
Right. See, they had, originally, but the budget was 6,000. They requested $1,000 less.
Oh, okay, I'm going, okay. I was looking at 2 and then 5. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, no, we don't,
Thank you.
Again, those estimates are looking into crystal ball. Crystal ball might have changed a little, but I don't know.
Okay, can we move on to the next department?
The next department would be the police. That's tab 12. The line item, the highlights on page 40 and the line items begin on 41.
Now, there's a fairly significant decrease in operations here. Is there a single item responsible for that? Or?
Let me look at that. Let me look.
It's a decrease in fuel that I
About
noticed.
$33,000 decrease in, about 10% decrease in operations.
There's about 11,000 between budgeted and 12-13 and 13-14 in fuel, a decrease.
There was 45, almost 46,000 in capital outlay last year.
And I think he's looking at operation.
Oh, just,
Yeah, so between fuel and uniforms is down about 3,700.
well, that's included. in
Sounds like a spread.
Yeah,
I think
I-
it's kind of
It's spread.
spread throughout.
Okay, that's fine, there's no single item.
but there is, I would like to ask the lease payments, that goes from a budget of 91 and 12-13 down to 70,000 and 13-14.
Well, there's 2/3 of it right there.
But yeah, we're
Because we haven't-
purchasing vehicles.
Yeah, and we haven't been purchasing them, and those lease payments are scheduled only 3-year.
Okay. So most of it's
And
there.
probably some of those have dropped
Yeah,
off, some of those
okay.
payments have dropped off.
Okay.
Which you'll see that, as we start now replenishing or replacing our
Mhm.
fleet, you'll see those numbers starting to increase and hopefully stable out,
Okay.
level out.
And is the purchase of the 5 vehicles that's recommended, is that covered in just the $4,500 lease pay? I mean, is that 5 vehicles we can get for
Mhm.
$4,500?
Well, the way we schedule, this is another budgeting change that we did this year. Normally, what we do is we budget them on a 3-year repayment plan. This year, we've budgeted them on a 4-year repayment plan. And I think that's pretty standard practice nowadays. What we do is we budget for the payment to be made. There will only be one lease payment made for those vehicles in the budget year. The next year, there will be 2 lease payments
okay.
made. So what we do is we borrow the money and we make the first payment the next day. And it cuts back on the interest. But, and then the next fiscal year, we budget it what we do is semi-annual payments, and we make one payment in advance.
Okay. That's just,
At 1%.
Well, actually, I estimated a 3% interest, because I'm just
Yeah,
conservative that way. I
yeah.
don't think it's gonna be 3%,
Mhm.
but you never know how interest rates go. But for the majority of the fleet, including the garbage trucks, we estimated a 4-year repayment schedule, amortization period, at 3%. And as we get to the fire department, there is a recommendation to replace the ladder truck.
Yeah.
We did increase the amortization period for that truck to 10 years.
years. So,
And the interest rate higher
Right.
as
Oh, yeah.
well.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Again, it's semi-annual payments, and the first payment is made in advance, so you're only gonna see that one payment in the budget year.
Yeah. Now, I know
But
you're
this one-
budgeting.
I'm sorry, Bill. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I know you're budgeting 3%. What are you actually seeing in terms of lease payments?
Well, we just closed on one at 1%.
Okay.
So this 4,500 reflects one payment, but it's one payment for all 5 vehicles?
Correct.
Yeah, Bill,
Good deal. I mean, that's.
the $4,500 that's in here is actually the excise tax that we pay on the vehicles. That's not the lease payment.
Oh, yeah, that's right, I'm sorry, 4,500, you're right. I can tell you, I'm sorry, that just got,
right above me.
Yeah, we're getting-
The first lease payment you'll see is,
It's
it's
actually-
$19,000.
19,000,
It's actually
okay,
lease
$19,742, yeah.
okay, got it.
Yeah, no, we don't have a magic.
And that was the other thing. Why, if you look on page 43, I was curious, those 5 vehicles are listed on item number 1 for the 13-14, the department requested and manager's requested, but then for the financial plan for 14-15,
I know.
it goes to line 3.
And,
Any reason
we still have to-
versus why that
because we
wouldn't have
only
been up there?
budget for your, so that you can see this a little bit clearer and we can be consistent, we only show you the budget for that first payment. The next, the next 5, in the plan year, that's 5 more vehicles.
Got it.
So,
Okay,
yeah,
that
we're-
makes sense.
We're gonna replace 10
It is a separate
vehicles
thing, because
in the
it'll be
next
10.
2 years.
Okay,
Okay.
that
Got
makes it
And we
clear.
only show you in the budget presentation that first year's lease payment.
Okay, that's clear.
We're hoping to get back on the schedule there
Mhm.
that we need to be, because that's what I was saying earlier, when you factor downtime,
Yeah.
it becomes more of an issue in the police department.
Yeah. And there's only a certain number of years that you enjoy the benefits of doing it, because eventually you get to the point where you have to start replacing anyway.
Right.
You get 3 or 4 gravy years, and then you have to, then you're back in the soup again.
And when we budget, we only budget the actual impact on the budget, which is the actual lease payment.
Right.
You'll see the capital outlay come into play when we actually get the financing in.
Yeah, yeah.
And we do a budget amendment to record that capital
Right,
outlay
right.
in, and then the debt on the other side, so
Yeah.
that's how we do that.
Any other questions, or
No,
move to animal control?
Animal control, highlights 45, line items 46.
Any questions? Okay,
I know, the replacement of the pickup truck is not recommended, but I was just curious that it would be $27,000, right? Is what they wanted, is what it would be.
That was their estimated cost, yes.
Is that kind of a vehicle that could be more modest? I mean, I don't know what they're talking about, a full-size pickup, or
Typically, they are full-size, yes.
is that?
And I believe they're also 4-wheel drive for animal control.
And they have cages and lights, and we,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
we
Cages and
outfit
lights.
it.
That's the whole cost.
They have to be
yeah.
able to drive off-road.
I understand. Okay, I'm just curious.
If there's no additional questions for the police department, we can go to tab 15. I'm sorry, tab 14, excuse me. Fire department. And your highlights begin on page 51 with your line item on 52. And as Beverly did allude to earlier, we are recommending the replacement of the 1986 ladder truck.
What's a new ladder cost these days? How much does the new ladder cost these days?
I think we're estimating $1,050,000.
Yeah.
Want to know.
Is that all?
Oh, I see,
Well-
yeah.
It's something that the new fire chief just made, aware to us, and the board just recently, there's a national contract, we have a state contract, and that's where we get a lot of our vehicle pricing from. But there's also a
I
national
know, for
contract
fire,
too.
yeah, for fire.
And we just joined that.
Yeah.
And so he might go shopping on the national contract for a fire truck. I don't know. It's up to whatever specs he needs. But that's one of our options, so hopefully it'll fit in there.
What's the old one worth? Not much.
It just depends on if
I don't know many people in the market for that old of a truck.
I'm sorry?
I said, I don't know many people in the market for that old of a truck, but, that's an avenue that we can explore.
There's not many towns that need a truck that can climb the monument. I'm sorry, I can't resist the dig.
You know, we do put those out on auction site, so they can bid on it. Other governments can bid on it. Might be somebody.
I would like to, one of the particular highlights, we were fortunate last year, the board was willing to allow us to add another mechanic. And in doing that, we were also very fortunate in finding one that had specific skills for this heavy equipment, the fire equipment. And as you can see, we have been able to do a lot more in-house. And here again, not just saving dollars, but saving downtime as opposed to having to send something away. That's great. So thank you for allowing that addition.
Any questions?
Mayor, by your leave, I'll do a 30-second walk around and keep my lower extremities alive.
Okay, you're okay with us continuing, or just,
Go ahead, I'll be okay.
okay.
Ocean Rescue, page 55 and 56 begins the line item.
Just walk around. Do y'all need a break?
I'm sorry, Debbie, say that again, I was,
Page 56, the line items for the Ocean Rescue.
I wasn't paying attention in class.
We do state on page 55 that we're looking at 19 stands, but I did have a conversation with the fire chief, and they may be doing some, Chief, I don't know if you've made that decision, if you're going to maintain the 19, or if you were able to determine if you needed that 20th.
We're going to monitor the situation at Croatan Surf Club, you know, as it fills up with more residents weekly that come in, do an analysis to see if there's going to be a need to put another stand there. But as of right now, we're still looking at it.
Okay. So what you're presented with, though, is the 19, but the chief felt that if that one was necessary, that we would be able to do it within the budget.
Any questions related to Ocean Rescue? Are you able to move on? Okay.
Your next tab is 16. This begins your Public Services Department, which will be the streets and solid waste.
I had one question on page 57.
Okay?
We had indicated no new positions, but the math,
The typo, sorry.
okay, good.
Steve showed me right before it's a typo.
Okay, good.
It really is 3 existing positions.
Okay, good. So it still keeps 444 then?
And is that correct, Amy? Amy's really, we currently have, it says that we have 2 existing, but I think we really have 3.
Right.
Equipment operators.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
5, 5, and
That's
5?
a typo.
Okay.
I think it was what happened last year when the position was frozen, and then they allowed us to unfreeze it.
That one got
We just
by,
forgot
so-
to update it.
No worries.
Sorry about that.
We'll
That's
change
okay. I
that.
figured y'all would know. Just need to ask.
Page 59 began your highlights. 60 is your line item.
Any questions?
And somewhere in here it says how many feet we're gonna do, doesn't it?
I don't think so.
No, it doesn't. How many feet?
6,000 feet?
I don't think it's
There was,
specified
It
in
did say
here.
somewhere, I think
there was
I
a
read it.
budget, I think maybe in the budget message,
Yeah,
or
okay.
Oh,
that's what-
oh.
something like that. It might
We just
Yeah, I
speak-
saw it, I saw it somewhere.
It might refer to, yeah.
More
it-
than 6,000 feet in length.
6,000 feet,
which
yeah,
is-
that's what I
yeah.
was thinking.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Is that amount going to keep us,
Well, no, what that says is it says plans for improvements to streets in the northwest area of Hilltop Hills move forward as approved by the board for the fall of 2013 project, more than 6,000 feet in length. That's that northwest, give me some streets, help me.
Columbia, Shiloh, Bath.
Right.
Is that amount, what we're doing here, is that gonna keep us okay, or? Obviously, you want more, who doesn't, but,
Yeah, that's a tough, I mean, based on Pete's preliminary, it'll be close. Now, as you design, you get scope creep, and I think there was an email circulated about some additional water main work. So it'll be close. I mean, Pete's probably gonna use every dollar of it. It's one of the largest projects it's probably it's the single largest project we've done in.
Years.
Yeah.
But it's back on base. That's where we should be doing, what we should be doing every year.
yeah, we certainly don't wanna get too far behind on streets, because we were doing so good for so long. I mean, we've been okay, I think, but we don't wanna get, fall behind again, because it's really hard to catch up.
And we devoted a lot of resources to drainage,
Yeah.
which I think we had to do. I don't think we had much choice.
That'll help in the long run.
Okay, moving forward. Okay.
Okay. Tab 18 is your POW bill, and then tab 19 takes you into solid waste. With your highlights on 64. This budget does include the new tipping fees that we're being charged by the county for our C&D. That goes to the Stumpy Point area. We are requesting 2 new garbage trucks. Very much needed.
Any questions?
If there's no questions, Mayor, that completes the general fund. Would you like to take perhaps a break before we begin the water fund?
Do you guys want to take a
I'm always for breaks.
5-minute break? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll reconvene and pick up. I think we were on moving into page, or starting the special fund
Actually, we're,
balances.
go to 21, tab 21, page 68. As we spoke about before, the water rates are recommended to increase the 4%, cover operating costs and water line and system improvements that are associated with the Water System Master Plan. And it does include in the revenues the $18,750 repayment from the wastewater fund.
What will be the balance of the debt due,
Oh,
roughly?
I'm not prepared for that, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Later, let's go.
It's still a considerable debt.
Several hundred?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The goal was to begin the repayment, but at the same time recognizing that the rates are high, even without that.
I understand.
And
I understand.
wanting to keep
Yeah.
it reasonable.
Yeah.
I think it's a 40-year,
40-year repayment?
yes, sir, no interest.
So you're talking $700,000?
700,000 to 800,000,
Yeah.
somewhere in
Yeah.
that ballpark.
Okay, got it.
Jeez.
And I think this is the second year? Second year, yes, sir.
Keep it up.
Okay.
Pretty good terms. 40 years, no interest.
Because it's better than ignoring that altogether.
Yeah, true.
Exactly, or
Not much
writing it
better.
off. Tab 22 is going to take you to the expenditures. From there, if you would skip to tab 23, 24. Okay, page 76, the highlights for your water administration. Again, you have the same situation with the healthcare. This actually has the general and liability insurance for that fund, such as you saw in Finance Department.
Okay.
The difference in the water fund as opposed to the general fund is when we do replace a vehicle, we do pay cash. Those are not financed. So you'll see that a little bit different.
Is there a reason for that?
Typically, the water fund is in a better position to make that, and it does
Okay.
save them money.
Healthier fund balance.
Okay. How is the, financially, is the water, the master plan working, the water master plan?
It's doing very well. That was just recently revisited, and it was updated to get us a little bit more in line with what we were seeing in our budgets and our proposals for the replacement. And I will comment, Steve spoke to it just briefly, on the fall project in doing the engineering and so forth and determining how they were, I think it was some drainage work they were going to do. It was determined that there was an area that we were going to be disturbing that had I think it's like the last section of asbestos pipes up in that area, and are going to be able to incorporate that work
Good.
with the street improvement work, as opposed to when it actually would come up in the master plan, going in and tearing back up all of that. So, you know, having that plan has really been.
So it's
beneficial.
orderly, nobody's gasping?
No, sir.
Okay, good.
And I will also comment with that, and the fire chief can certainly speak to this better than I, but it's my understanding that because of the improvements that were done on the beach road, some of the fires that we've had recently, the fire departments were able to get the water pressure that they
They need
needed.
it. Good.
That would have not been the case.
Okay, so the larger mains are
Oh,
are paying for
absolutely.
themselves.
Absolutely.
Okay. Super.
Any other questions? Comments?
If there's not any other questions, tab 25 will take you to the water plant. Your highlights are on 81, and your line items begin on 82. And this shows you some of the high points of the water system master plan capital improvements for the upcoming budget.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? Okay.
Tab 26 takes you to the water systems with your highlights on 85 and your line items on 86.
Any questions there or comments?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, then we go to the wastewater fund, and the revenue highlights on 89. And then tab 30, I'm sorry,
Just mixed up.
29,
stay with tab 29 and flip to,
statistical data.
your highlights are on 93, and your line items on 94. Fairly basic. And Mayor, that concludes the water and wastewater fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any overall comments or discussion on,
I would like to commend the staff for a very well-prepared and carefully prepared budget, and for preparing a budget that essentially allows us to maintain a revenue-neutral rate. I appreciate that very much, and I think it's particularly important this year. And I'd like to commend the staff and thank them for a very well-done job.
Thank you. I would just also like to comment, Beverly and her department did an outstanding job, as well as the other departments and the department heads. They truly ask for what they need, and I appreciate that. And as you know, Beverly's had a lot that she dealt with this year.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that you guys have done, you and your department. It's really easy to understand, even for me. So,
Do we still have the rule that says that employees who desire to get married must get permission from the board?
Or have children.
you need to bring him in here and take a look.
I think we should examine the candidate.
That's great.
These vehicles, how many do we have? I guess it's on here maybe somewhere total.
I actually have a little cheat sheet on.
Oh, cheat sheet.
Yeah, I got it. I can pass it to you, of what we are proposing to do in the 13-14 year. And, let me see if I can go down it pretty
That lays it out for
easily.
5 years.
Vehicles, and these are the ones that have been recommended. In the police department, 5 vehicles. In the fire station, the ladder truck. And they are also buying a compressor, a SCBA compressor bottle refilling system. Streets division, they're gonna, a dump truck. And this is not all that's been requested, but this is what's been recommended. And then in the solid waste division, 2 residential garbage trucks and refurbishment on the grapple attachment for the Mack roll-off and the boom loader. Also, other improvements include paint, these are of the capital nature, cleaning, painting, caulking buildings, the electrical service around the frog pond, and the beach access capital maintenance. We're also looking at replacing the lighting at Meekins Field, that you'll see that on the lease schedule. That's been recommended. The MCNC fiber construction, that's also on the lease. We're gonna hopefully borrow the funds to do that, because that will cost $63,000, but we're gonna hopefully pay for that over time if we're allowed to do that. And then we will be replacing 3 roll-off containers in the solid waste division. In the water department, we're going to replace a Dodge pickup and water admin. We will be replacing a Ford pickup and water systems. We're going to do some meter replacements at $229,000, some meter part changeouts for $75,000, and a portable meter test bench for $6,000. Other improvements at the water plant include, these are the water system master plan improvements, and that would be the 8th Street influent valves for $60,000, pump can inspections for $25,000, the SCA DA system improvements, an automated chlorine addition for $75,000, and refurbishing the PAX mixers for $20,000. And then we're gonna have the water main adjustments associated with the street and drainage projects for $105,887. So total to the general fund is, let's see, Ron, you've got the requested in there, but the actual budget impact for the general fund is going to be $61,000 in outright outlay and $223,918 in lease payments. And for the water fund, the budget impact is $654,887. And those are all capital.
And those were already reviewed. Each
Those have already
subsection we
been
went
reviewed.
through.
That's just
Right.
recapping capital outside of just general operations. So we are making some headway in replacing and getting some capital things done.
That's great. I too echo Commissioner Pitt's comments on the job well done by staff, and appreciate everyone continuing to really maintain tight fiscal control of their departments and request what's necessary. And while there seems to be a few things that were requested by departments that weren't included in the recommended budget, it looks like that you all certainly have captured the priorities. And so I appreciate that and just appreciate all the work of our employees and what you do. And thank you so much to all the finance staff. Very well done with this budget. It made it easy to review. So, thank you. Any other comments before we?
There's one thing I wanted to ask Beverly. The way we're handling our capital outlays, we're basically going to move them from during the years when we were able to enjoy the benefits of maintenance as required. Our capital outlays got to down around 3 to 4% of our general fund budget. And now for quite a few years, especially until we finish paying for the new fire equipment, the new ladder and the new pumper, which follows on, 5 years behind that? Your new pumper is 5 years behind the ladder, I think?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're gonna be probably roughly at 10% of the general fund for 10 years or so. Do I understand it correctly? Because it's a significant amount, and I just think we should be aware, there's not much we can do about it.
Right.
but-
Right.
Let me look at the
But,
lease payment schedule.
And that's 5 years out, but for a 5-year period. there's
For a
gonna be
good, well,
two.
for roughly about 10 years, 5 to 10 years, we're gonna be facing approximately 10% of the general fund and capital outlay,
Through lease.
which we're gonna find a little stressful,
Right.
because we're not used to it. But we'll get used to it, but it will be a bit more stressful than what we've had in the past.
Good point.
The ladder truck is several years, it's being recommended several years out from when it would have been on the
Right,
replacement
oh yeah, no,
schedule.
I'm well aware.
And that's part of
No,
why you
I've
get
been
that double
involved-
whammy.
yeah, I've been involved in all the fights over ladders and pumpers.
Is there any, does anybody on the board have any thoughts about the 8th Street Fire Station, where that might be, somewhere down the road, or?
Somewhere around 2143.
Fire station.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's about where I was thinking, yeah.
it's not
No,
on my radar.
I'm not sure, I'm just going by my memory, which isn't so great, but when we were first talking about that, things looked pretty good with cooperation, and then it kind of fell
That's
back
right,
and
that's
kept
right.
getting cut back, and then all of a sudden it was like we can't,
That's right,
there wasn't any agreement
there
possible.
wasn't, yeah.
I don't know how that's, how that might look in the future. I don't know, I talked to Beverly a little bit about this yesterday, and I don't see anything happening on that for 5 to 10 years.
I agree.
And one of the reasons and I don't know if this is wise financially or not, but one of the reasons I brought that up is because there's about almost $90,000 in that fund that's not doing anything, it's just there. And if there's no intention of using that, say hypothetically for 10 years, is it wise to leave it there and gain 1% interest a year? Is it wise to fold it into the budget or use it for, I don't know how you would do it, use it for a specific purpose, or just put it in a general fund, or just leave it sit there and gain its, what kind of interest is it getting?
It's the same as,
Yeah, we
it's
could-
invested the same.
Right, we invest the whole pool
Okay,
together.
yeah, all right.
But, and then separate it out into funds, allocate
Okay.
it to the funds.
But anyway-
It is just, like you said, it is just sitting there in the fund balance of that fund.
And I don't agree with necessarily with the tit for tat thing what we talked about before. However, and we did talk about the COLA, and we talked about the health insurance, and I don't know enough about the health insurance except for my personal experiences, and then what you might imagine might happen to people. The way that it's been proposed, I think, is good. And a lot of people may say that's good too, of course, if something happens. But again, that's gambling, that's what insurance is, you're rolling the dice. So I don't necessarily recommend that we change that. We can just hope that everybody for their own sake especially, and their dependents, that they stay healthy. Not for financial reasons, obviously, but for the right reasons. I hope everybody does, but I don't know whether there's that money sitting there that's not really doing anything. If it can't be used to enhance the COLA, or I don't mean, again, directly tit for tat, but if you roll it into the general fund, because another percent would cost us about $63,000. And I don't know about the other towns, except for which we just heard about, Nags Head is getting 2%, plus they have a merit program. Did we say anything about their insurance, or do we know?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't know what they've done with their insurance, but I wanted to bring that up because I had it in my notes.
Okay.
But when it comes down to it, and I know this, it's not gonna, this is the budget we're talking about for the public hearing, but I would like, I'm gonna be asking later on, whenever the time appropriate, to increase that COLA by 1%.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Well, let's move forward with our agenda then, if there's no more comments on the budget. And at this point, we have the public hearing scheduled on the budget for June 10th,
Yes,
correct,
ma'am.
at 5:30.
Yes, ma'am.
Since we'll welcome public comments. Okay, so this is the time on the agenda that's set aside for public comment. Is there anyone here this morning that wishes to speak at public comment? All right, well, Howard, thank you for being with us. Then we'll move on to, we don't have any old business, we'll move to new business. We have one item under new business, which is the nomination for appointment to the Dare County Land Transfer Tax Appeals Board. Jackie Rick Sample has been our representative on this board since 2010, and she has been contacted and does desire to be reappointed to this board. She served in multiple capacity as indicated in the memo from the town manager. There are no other applications on file for anyone specifically wishing to serve for our town in this capacity. So a motion would be in order.
I move that we nominate Rick Sample for a second term on this board.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to Commissioner's agenda. We'll start, Commissioner Rubana, anything today?
I don't have anything today, thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Pitt?
I do. I attended last week the Community Wind Conference in Edenton, which was an all-day conference and was promoting the community wind actions of various communities throughout the northeastern part of North Carolina. Nothing has changed in any significant fashion in terms of the economics of wind power. It's still a very difficult thing to do, and it's there's no real renewable energy credit market in North Carolina, and so it makes projects like this very difficult. But Jim Weinbarger organized, our Jim Weinbarger, who runs maintenance for the Dare County Schools and is also a very active proponent of wind power, and has erected several academic instructional wind towers throughout the county, is very active in this organization. And he presented a paper in which he is trying to find funding, grant funding, for a significantly larger turbine to be erected in the First Flight school complex. And so when he finds that funding, or he thinks he's got the funding, I'm sure that he will want to come and sit down with us, and we'll have a technical we'll have a technical presentation, and he can discuss the changes to our ordinance, our wind ordinance, that will be required if we want to consider allowing that to happen. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thanks for attending that.
Yes, thanks for attending that, Bill. subject interests me also.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't have anything today, thank you.
Okay. Under the mayor's agenda, I have one item this morning. And it's a proclamation on National Beach Safety Week, which is officially June 2nd through the 9th. And the objective of National Beach Safety Week is really an awareness campaign about safety near and around the water. Specifically, some of the safety lessons and important things to remember. Never swim alone, swim near a lifeguard, don't fight the current. There's certainly rip current messages that are out there. Swim sober is an important note. Don't float where you can't swim. Obviously, know where you are in the water and they're not getting over your head. Life jackets equal boating safety. We used to say in the YMCA, feet first, not head first, to protect so you don't have spinal injuries. And at home, you're the lifeguard, and certainly pool safety, backyard pool safety is really important for parents and for visitors that are here in the area. I know there's been horrendous stories where families come in and they check in and they turn their backs away for a minute and a child wanders into a pool area. So, as we're here about to kick off Memorial Day weekend, which often is kind of, in many people's eyes, the start of the summer, which culminates at Labor Day, it's certainly appropriate to send out this reminder, not only on Beach Safety Week, but stressing all the safety around water. So I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the National Beach Safety Week proclamation.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and one second proclamation is the Rip Current Awareness Week, which coincides with Beach Safety Awareness Week, particularly relevant in our area where we have frequent issues with rip currents. Probably a very appropriate time. I believe at the June 10th meeting, we'll have the opportunity to be introduced to all of our lifeguards. It's always a nice meeting to see those folks, and they play such a critical role with protecting our residents and guests here during the summer, and they also play a key role in communicating the rip current message. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the Rip Current Awareness Week proclamation.
I second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Town manager's agenda.
Yes, ma'am. I apologize to the board. I neglected to remind you under the expenditures and administration that the board was going to discuss the partnerships. In your recommended budget is the continued partnership that the board's been doing for a number of years with the Community Care Clinic of Dare, Interfaith, our partnership with the YMCA, and our partnership with Nature's Conservancy. You had a request the other evening from a lady.
Rosemary Hunt.
Thank you. Food for Thought, I couldn't think of her name. And I think their request was for $10,000, and the board was going to discuss that at the work session. As I said, it is not in your recommended budget.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open the floor for discussion on those items now, as far as the town's position on the sponsorships and partnerships. The total amount with the 4 current sponsorships that we're doing is $30,000.
Yes, ma'am. It's 10 each for the Community Care Clinic and Interfaith, and 5 for the Y and the Nags Head Woods.
I think we discussed this last year. We don't get any kind of a break at the Y employees, right?
There is a reduction. Yes.
There is?
Yes. That was not when we discussed it last year, but
There is now.
they did
Oh.
do that.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Originally, when we started that program many years ago, and it was 10,000,
Yes, sir.
there was a significant reduction associated with it, as I recall.
Okay.
Does anyone have a recommendation or how they want to?
I would recommend that we adopt the recommendation of the town manager, that we continue with those 4 programs at the authorized rate. I think that as much as I would like to support Food for Thought, and I'm a former board member of Food for Thought, I don't think that we really can afford to take on new partners right now in view of our financial situation. And so I would like to just continue with the partners that we do have.
Okay. That's fine. And do we need that in the form of an
No,
official
ma'am, I just,
action? So, yeah,
I
it's just to
should
bring it
have
up.
brought that up during the work session and it slipped my
That's okay.
mind.
Okay, I agree. Do you have,
Yeah, if you have something else, or, right, okay. I just once again want to thank staff, Beverly and her staff especially, and the rest of the staff for, and the managers for getting their budget stuff together. And I did want to, when I touched on the thing about the 1% COLA additional, I did want to say, and it slipped my mind, that the scenario that Beverly gave with that 0.91 increase to round our taxes off, I think she's doing that to make her math easier. Probably. So like-
Actually, that's me, because I don't like those,
Somebody.
those odd numbers.
I think that's something else that we should mull over between now and the time we make a decision. For the reasons that we're given, protecting ourselves a little bit, getting a little bit of revenue, and also protecting our shared revenue. And I want to thank Brandy for sticking it out. I know she's not feeling well at all. And she's hung in there, and appreciate it very much. And I just want y'all staff to know that the town manager showed up at the meeting today in flip-flops.
well, let's turn it back over to the town manager to complete, well, you want to complete your agenda, and then we can try to get Miss Brandy home.
That completes my agenda, thank you.
Before we do this, let me say one thing, because I do want to make just one comment on what we were just talking about. I kind of concur with Bill and with Mike on this as far as adding additional nonprofits to the budget. We had a little bit of a conversation about this last week, and I tend to think as long as we're doing something where we're actually in partnership and we're receiving something back from a group like this, I think it's okay. But I think as a municipality, and considering we're only one of many municipalities in this area, I don't feel that it's our responsibility or our duty to support these groups as such, and especially groups that have a pretty substantial fund balance as a nonprofit. It would be one thing if they were working and struggling day to day to do what they need to do, but I just feel, and I say this, it probably cutting off my own foot, because I'm one of the ones begging all the time to keep senior games afloat. So I'm not saying this lightly, because I've been in the same situation Sheila was in at the Y, where I've been one of those people doing this, but it's just one of those things. It's not my money that we're spending here. So when we're doing this, I don't think it's something that we should just take lightly and say, oh yeah, well let's just fund this group and this group and this group and this group, because if they go to every single municipality and get even $5,000 or $10,000, they're it makes their job a lot easier, but it's also, I'm not really sure, our responsibility to do that if we're not receiving something back.
Okay, thank you. Let's move now to the consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. 2 items on the consent agenda, the minutes from May 13th, 2013, and the consensus from the Board of Commissioners to reschedule the May 22nd meeting to the one we just had this morning. And with that, staff recommends approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I so move.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, we're back to public comment. Howard, do you want?
Come on, I know you got,
You're a public representative today.
you always have something to say. You can tell us after.
All right. Well, again, thank you for being here, Howard, and thank you, staff, for being here and all your hard work. And with that, we could take a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.